Okay. All right. I would like to welcome everybody to the March 22nd, 2023 meeting of the Calaveras County Water District. Would you all please join me in the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, Rebecca, would you please call the roll?
Director Underhill. Here. Director Davidson.
Here.
Director Cicada.
Here.
Director Thomas.
Yes, I'm here.
And President Ratterman is absent today.
Okay. At this time, we'd like to go to public comments. Members of the public may address the board on any non-agendized item. The public is encouraged to work through staff to place items on the agenda for board consideration, and no action can be taken on the matters not listed on the agenda. Do we have anything under public comment today? The chair recognizes Ralph Copeland.
Just like to thank CCWD, Michael Minkler, and the crew for coming to Copperopolis for the for our town hall. Excuse me. Michael laid out a very good description of what the base rate covers, and with all the work involved with that. And hopefully the public will understand when the rate study comes around that money is just not tossed any which way. And that, again, Michael made a presentation which warranted our baseline. And I'd just like to thank him for that. And it was a good job.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, glad you could make it to that meeting, Ralph. Okay, moving on to the consent agenda.
Mr. Chair, can I make a public comment?
Of course you may.
This is Joel Mester with Utica. Hi, everybody. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, yes. Nice to hear your voice, Joel.
Yeah, well, so I've been meaning to call in for a couple meetings, but I just wanted to express our gratitude to CCWD for all the assistance that was provided to us during the atmospheric river storms in late December and early January. There was equipment that came over. There was personnel that helped us make emergency road repairs, and technical expertise that was shared. And we really couldn't have gotten those things done without CCWD providing that mutual aid. So just wanted to let the board know how much we appreciated that. And we really feel as though there's a great partnership that's been formed between us and CCWD, and that we can count on you during emergencies if the resources are available. So thank you so much for that mutual aid.
That was awesome. Good job, Michael. Putting that together.
Yep. Do you want to comment?
I was just gonna, no, thank you, Joel. Appreciate that.
Okay, call in anytime, Joel. Like to see you here sometime. So.
Yeah, but
sounds
please,
good.
Please, Joel, don't make it when the water is coming over the dam, like he was on Facebook out there in, I don't know, the middle of the night, looking at the water flowing over the dam. Yeah. That was something else. That was just great for you to keep an eye on it.
Okay, now, are there any other online comments under public comments?
Maybe we could ask Joel if he knows anybody that will help shovel Director Underhill's driveway. I'm trying to think, you were asking earlier.
Thanks, Jeff.
Okay, if we may, let's move on to the consent agenda. These items are expected to be routine and non-controversial. Items will be acted upon by the board at one time without discussion. Any board member may request that any item be removed from discussion. We have the approval of the minutes from March 8th, the report on monthly investment transactions for February, and amendment to the Upper McCollum River Watershed Authority Joint Powers Agreement.
Move for acceptance.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Could we call the roll on that?
Director Underhill,
Yes.
Director Davidson.
Yes.
Director Cicada,
Yes.
Director Thomas.
Yes. Okay, moving on to a public hearing, we have a discussion and direction regarding the execution and delivery of joint community facilities agreement in connection with the bond opportunities for land development, also known as BOLD, B-O-L-D. Jeff Meyer, thank you.
Good afternoon, Mr. President, members of the board, members of the public. The item before you today, it's kind of twofold. And the first thing we're going to do is ask you to authorize execution and delivery of a joint community facilities agreement in connection with with the BOLD program. The other one is approving, authorizing, and directing execution of a joint exercise of powers agreement relating to the California Municipal Finance Authority, CMFA. We have some members or participants online, I believe. I know James Wozniak at Jones Hall was hoping to be part of this discussion. Maybe his partner Dave Fama. Mike Whipple, I saw him earlier. He's with Development and Financial Advisories. He's sort of the MA for this process. Evan Litch of LGI, and I don't know if Mike Fletcher of CV Development is online as well, but those are some of the participants in this particular project we're going to be discussing today. Couple acronyms I brought up, and I know Director Thomas brought this up. The BOLD program. This is a bond opportunities for land development. We'll just refer to it as BOLD. It's a program of CMFA, the California Municipal Finance Authority. And the other acronym I'm going to be using today is CFD, Community Facilities District. Now, most of you have been on this board over the last dozen years when we've created a couple assessment districts. We did Dolly Cassidy and we did Flying Acres. This is a similar process to what the district went through to create assessment districts. This is actually creating a CFD, a Community Facilities District. However, there's a little bit of difference here. We were hand in hand with those property owners when we developed the assessment districts. We did most of the work. We're also still administrators for the debt that they were taking out. So we have to monitor that on a yearly basis, work with Will Dan, an administrator, and manage that process. Although the debt is not the district's, the debt falls on the property owners, it's still, we have to manage that process. And it's an ongoing process, as you're aware of. Now, on the other hand, this BOLD program is managed by CMFA. We really don't have a whole lot to do with it other than joining CMFA and being a conduit for the developers to get money to be able to build infrastructure and pay capacity fees. Just like the assessment districts, when we did Dolly Cassidy, we put pipeline in the ground and we gave them an opportunity to pay for, fund their capacity fees. Same with Flying Acres. We replaced their entire system, and those who weren't customers had the ability to pay their capacity fees and put it on the tax roll. This is very similar. A CFD, through this program, they can finance improvements, infrastructure improvements, and they can pay for capacity fees. As you're aware of, capacity fees for larger developments can be quite expensive. So this is a conduit to be able to enable developers to push their projects forward without having to take a lot of money out of their pockets. It does place it on the tax rolls of the property owners for these particular costs, but it's spread out over 20, 25 years, similar to an assessment district. And all these new property owners are made fully aware when they buy their homes that this is what's going to be on there. I look at it this way. If the developer takes the money out of his pocket and pays for all these improvements, he'll put it in the price of a house. If he uses this program, the price of the house may not be as much, but those costs are amortized over 20, 25 years. So it sticks with the property. So it's a little easier to manage, but it's a process nonetheless.
Question for you.
Yes,
Does it, the size of the development have any bearing on using this?
not that I'm aware of. Now, Mike Whipple, who's on board, can answer that question as well. Mike, is that true? Size is not an issue?
Board members, and Mike Whipple with DFA. Hopefully you can see and hear me.
Welcome.
Yeah, glad to be here. As it relates to the question, the BOLD program typically looks for projects that are targeting a financing between 500,000 and 5 million. They can go above the $5 million mark, but a lot of times what we find is the public agency likes to take on those activities and do public financings when it gets to 10, 15, or $20 million on large master plan projects. But BOLD targets projects 5 million to 500,000 with the ability to go above that $5 million mark based on conversations with their member partners.
Okay.
I guess secondarily, I don't know if you were talking specifically about bond size or the size of the project. The typical projects that we see that participate with the program are probably residential projects that have approximately 75 to 200 residential units is probably the standard bandwidth of unit size that we see participating in the program.
Yeah, that was what I was getting at, right?
Okay.
Okay.
Once again, I heard you say that, so this would cover if the developer wanted to come in, this would, they could get this bond to, build their infrastructure, their water and sewer mains, and pay for capacity fees.
They can do that as long as it's within those parameters.
Does it have to be specific to the water and sewer infrastructure, or can they add other items?
Mike?
I mean, can they
Yeah,
do their curb and gutter?
Yeah, so they could do other public improvements. So it's a mechanism that allows for the financing of public improvements to have a useful life of 5 years or greater. So in a lot of areas, we have both the water district and the land use authority, in this case the county, to participate in these programs so that we could have, roadway improvements, drainage, sewer, water, parks, all the major infrastructure components you see typically approved with one of these projects. But each project is a little bit different in terms of what they want to target.
How does, since we collect capacity fees, we don't collect them until till they submit a building permit. How would the capacity fees be distributed to us? Because, these these guys always have high hopes that they're gonna sell all their units out in a year, but it rarely works out like that up here.
Yeah. It typically doesn't always work out like that. And so there's two programs, and there's two real main programs and then kind of a hybrid program. The two programs that you see is that the developer will utilize the BOLD program to pre-fund the connection fees to the local agencies. And that, is based on how much development's occurred, because we have to meet certain value to lien requirements in order to issue the bonds. But a lot of times we try to target the fees would be prepaid to the public agency, so they receive a lump sum of money prior to a lot of connections taking place. We found that that's the preferred method for a lot of the public agencies, to receive them in a lump sum. That way they can go out and construct needed improvements when they receive large sums of money like that, as opposed to over the course of 2 or 3 or 4 years. The other way is that it's a reimbursement where the builder comes in, he pays his fees when he pulls a building permit or connects to the system, and then those fees are ultimately reimbursed with bond proceeds that are issued by the CFD. That's kind of the long-term approach, although that's not as beneficial to the public agency. So we really like to target the pre-funding. And then there's kind of a hybrid model where you've gotten into the project, you've developed it, you've built your model complex, you've pulled those building permits, then you issue bonds. And so the permit fees paid with the models get reimbursed, and then the balance of the project in terms of fees get delivered to the public agency, and the balance of the project is pre-funded. So Usually,
So-
usually it happens as kind of the hybrid approach where a little bit of vertical construction's happened and then bonds are issued. But we always try to target bonds being issued towards the front end to get those monies to the district as soon as we can, subject to underwriting criteria. I should caveat that.
Okay, another observation. If a development comes in and does this, and, you know, say they go in, they build their models, and then we go and, you know, that this bond is passed, and they only have, end up having 25% occupancy, who pays the extra 75% of the debt?
Yeah, this is a debt that runs with the land. So it's the property owner is going to be obligated to pay for the taxes as they come
So
on
the
the property
developer
tax
still
bills.
has to pay the taxes. And then, but again, if in the scenario like I mentioned, if there's 25% of the landowners, and then the developer has 75% of it, what's to prevent him from folding his tent and it goes into foreclosure or, what's the word for it?
Bankruptcy,
No, it's,
receiver
yeah.
default.
yeah. You know,
Well,
it's-
it's, yeah, so.
I
Well,
mean, are
hopefully
there
that
any
doesn't happen,
guarantees? I mean,
right?
do they have to
You
put up
know,
any sort of a bond for this, or is it just the value of the land is the equity, and if they go into default, I mean, does it go just like an assessment district where the land would be auctioned off and pay the debt, and perhaps the bondholders would end up losing money?
Yeah,
You
yeah,
got-
and
you got
under the
6
worst
of
case
4.
scenario, yeah, that's what happens. But I mean, I think there's if we have 25% of the homeowners, there are certain things that we put in place. We fund a reserve fund out of the bond proceeds, which helps to pay for any delinquencies that may accrue or come up during the years. There's capitalized interest that we assume that helps mitigate the levy in the first initial years that allows the developer the transfer ownership to ultimately homeowners, and delinquency rates from homeowners is very small. You know, typically it's less than 2% or 1%. CFD bonds are issued with a 10% coverage ratio, which means that there's the ability to have at least up to 10% delinquencies before you even run out of special taxes on an annual basis. So there's a lot of securities, you know, basically suspenders and belts put in place to help mitigate any risk. If at the end of the day there are delinquencies, right? This is an investment that bondholders, you know, have purchased these investments, and they have certain guarantees that will come to them as the investment. And so what typically happens in the bond documents, there are foreclosure proceedings that would take place that after a certain level of delinquency is achieved, whether it's in aggregate or on a per parcel basis, then accelerated foreclosure proceedings would take place for those delinquent parcels. You know, that being said, you know, in order for the bonds to be issued, the value of the taxable property has to be a minimum of 4 to 1. So you have to have, if you wanted to issue $1 million worth of bonds, you had to have $4 million in value of the taxable property. So at that point in time, there's a substantial amount of infrastructure investment into the project to get to that 4 to 1 value to lien. So it's at that point, it's pretty unlikely that a developer would walk away from that much infrastructure investment in a project.
It happens.
The nice thing about this program though is because we've been in that position before,
Right.
but in this scenario, it's not the district that's administering it that has to hold those reserves, that has to build all those protections in place, which is a huge amount of work. We've been through it. And in this case, it's CMFA that's on the hook for all that administrative work and overhead.
So in summary, CCWD, if a contractor defaulted, doesn't matter to us, we got our money, the infrastructure's in there. It's the entity managing who lent them the money.
Well, yeah, I mean, whether we get our money or not probably depends on how that particular one is structured and the timing of default. So I don't think it's not necessarily in each case we'd be guaranteed a certain amount of money. It would depend on how each project is structured, but it would alleviate the administrative burden from the district.
If we became a member of this, does CCWD get a say in and who's gonna get some funding?
Well, don't, it'll be based off our facilities agreement, right?
Yeah,
Between us
and based
developer.
on what the developer is seeking to fund with this program. But yeah, I should let Jeff and Mike speak to that.
I can help answer that question if you guys want
Sure.
to. Yeah, and so if the board decides to become a member of CMFA and adopt the program, the developers have to submit an application to the BOLD program. That application is routed to the public agencies that are listed as members. And staff gets an opportunity to review those applications to make sure that the project that is applying to move forward with BOLD for their project meets all the specifications and the policies and the restrictions and whatever staff has in place and the board has in place to make it eligible to participate in this type of funding. So you do kind of outsource the kind of formation, bond issuance, and administration, but staff is involved with reviewing and approving applications that come into the program.
Thank you.
And one other follow-up to your point, Director Cicada, is that, and this is, we talked about this yesterday in front of the Finance Committee. We discussed this with Director Adamant and Director Cicada. It's important to remember here is that the district is not liable to repay the CMFA bonds or the special taxes imposed on participating properties and has no contractual relationship with bond owners or bond trustee.
Good.
Now, that is kind of different than what we have been in the past. Even with assessment district, it falls on the property owners, but we've had to administer that process.
It was never our debt.
No, exactly. It's not our debt, but it's a matter of who administers it. This is awful nice because the district does not have to administer it.
Yeah.
Yet we do have a say into what's involved in the project.
Right, good.
Because it, emphasize minimal involvement by the district and district staff. What's coming back into my mind is that project that we had in Valley Springs.
604.
Yeah, okay, and so that, but you're reassuring us.
It is not on us this time because we help create assessment districts and
It's
so
hard,
forth.
you can't really say it was on us. It really wasn't on us. It was, all that money was paid up front and they built the infrastructure. They just quit paying their bills. And so the bond owners are the ones that got screwed out of
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, and there are protections in place now that would not, there's some things that happened with 8604 that I don't think would happen again.
Right.
In terms of the required collateral and the
Well, the biggest
other
issue with
protections that are in
604 was 75% of the units that were created, or the capacity that was created, was owned by 4 developers. And then, and they happened to do this right before the 2006 collapse. And so that, they just decided not to pay.
Right.
So there was only 25% of people there paying. Now, in this case, it looks to me like, again, this is not going to be our problem, but 100% of the lots that are owned in this bond are going to be owned by one guy until he starts selling houses, or one person, I should say.
When developed, yes.
Yeah.
And just to kind of follow up on this, we have 2 developers who are interested in this project. LGI Homes, which is looking to build 156 homes in the Valley Springs area. They're going to connect to us for water and sewer. And that's looking at about a little over $4 million worth of capacity fees. So it's going to be staged over time. I believe Evan was telling me they're looking at development beginning in April of 2024, construction in 2025. So there's timing things there. And I think Mike brought it up. There's different ways they can do this. They can pay for everything up front. They can do a hybrid model and kind of front some of it and then get paid for themselves. I don't have a crystal ball to tell you what 2025 is going to look like. But this plan gives them the flexibility to get the funds that they need to be able to connect in. And that's the big thing, is we'll be able to get new services connected to our system.
What's the financial advantage of this as to just selling muni bonds?
This, Mike?
For
Versus
the
this,
developer, what's the financial advantage to the developer as opposed to just going on the market and selling municipal bonds?
Well, typically it's a, you know, for the developer, it's a lower cost of financing for them than going out to the normal capital markets. The interest rates on tax exempt bonds are typically, you know, several percentage points lower than what they see in the typical capital markets. And so it's a lower cost of financing. And to what Jeff had pointed out earlier, you know, they're able to utilize this low cost of financing, which has an impact on the ultimate price point that they bring homes to the market.
Why is it lower price?
Why
Tax
is
exempt.
tax exempt financing? Yeah, you know, I couldn't get into the reasons why it's lower cost, but you know, I think like assessment districts and like the CFDs, these were put in place in the state of California, and there's similar statutes in other states that were put in place to deliver public infrastructure and to use it under you know, these tax exempt structures to provide low cost financing for home builders and land developers throughout the state. So yeah, what other types of municipal financing you might be thinking of? Well, you know, is it less expensive if the district was to do their own bond issuance guaranteed by the general fund? Probably not. These ones have a higher risk profile than if the district themselves wanted to issue their own debt to expand water systems and sewer systems. But I don't think that's an attractive option, especially when we're talking about smaller projects like this. And you know, kind of talking about the security, the nice thing about the BOLD program is the ability to bite off smaller chunks. I think what you saw prior to the recession in 2008 was large scale CFDs or assessment districts that were created along master plan communities or specific plans. And what this program allows you to do, like I talked about earlier, is look at smaller bites at the apple, which minimizes the exposure to your undeveloped portions of the project. And those undeveloped portions of the projects are the ones that are at most risk. And so what happened a lot of times prior to the Great Recession is you did these large specific plans, you issued debt based on these large CFDs that covered hundreds and hundreds of units. What we're talking about here is looking at smaller projects, trying to issue debt based on phases of the project that are actually developing and being sold. So we don't have that exposure to the undeveloped property that's carried for a long period of time.
That makes sense.
Just now, how is the California Municipal Finance Authority founded? How did it get created?
You want to go into CMFA creation, or do you want me to kind of cover it?
Yeah, that's not something that I know the statewide JPA. I don't know when it was put in place, how
Sure.
long it's been around. You know, maybe if one of the BOLD team members is on, that would be a better answer, better answered by them.
James, are you on board? Or Dave? Pardon me? No, that's Evan. The documentation that I was looking at, the formation documentation, it was formed back in 2004. And there was a group of basically public agencies, whether it's cities or something, to get together and look for a financing mechanism to be able to pull resources so that, excuse me, so that the cost is driven down. It's sort of like when we did CSDA financing for the CIP loans. We used a group that was already established, that's in place, whether it's bond counsel, MA, underwriters, to be able to get the lowest cost possible versus us trying to do it on our own. CMFA was started just to do that process, to allow pooled resources, because when they go to issue debt, and Mike, please correct me if I'm wrong here, they issue debt basically on a quarterly basis. So if they have 5 applications holding maybe $20 million, some of them are like $4 million each under that $5 million threshold, they're able to package this together and get lower costs to issue the debt. So it's sort of a pooled resource of public agencies, whether cities, counties, or such. And we would join. We have no liability to the debts of CMFA. It just gives us an opportunity to participate We also, if they issue bonds, we get a little bit of a rebate on it. It's not a whole lot. It just makes it easier for us versus us trying to go out on our own and issue this debt through an assessment district.
If we were a member, do you have to, somebody have to participate in quarterly meetings, like board meetings or anything
No.
like that? Okay.
No,
No, and I think the other big benefit, other than keeping, finding low cost financing opportunities, it helps facilitate development, which is good for the member agencies. But also that takes that administrative burden off, which can be huge in
Yeah.
cases.
Excuse me, Jeff, I believe there were some of us who were here in 2004, Jeff. And I believe I remember when you talked about this agency being formed.
we did one other agency back when we did a PFA, Public Financing Authority, when we did some USDA, we joined another agency, and just like that agency, the authorities are separate and apart from the members. So the members don't incur any of the debt or liabilities or
Okay, so it
obligations.
was a different agency.
Yeah, it's a different, I was trying to remember it. I think it was CSTA or something along
Mhm.
those lines. It was a Southern California Cities Organization.
Mhm.
And just like that, we're not obligated for any of their liabilities and such.
Jeff, you mentioned a moment ago about the possibility of a rebate. Is that what is covered on this statement that the CFA, member of a CFA, the district has the ability to obtain some portion of the CMFA's bond issuer fees?
Yes.
Okay.
It's really not a whole lot, but we do participate as a member. If we did not, we would not be eligible for those.
Where do they sell these? Who do they sell these bonds through?
Is it Stiefel that sells the
No,
bonds?
the Bold program has a team of professionals put in place. The three main components of that are the underwriter, the banker, which is Piper Sandler.
Piper Sandler,
Then
that's
there
it,
is
yeah.
the,
Silicon Valley?
No,
no. Then there's a bond counsel, Jones Hall, and there's a special tax consultant, Goodwin Consulting.
Piper Sandler.
That bond program that was used for the 8604 was the not so bold.
Right. That's bolder.
It was a little too bold.
Yeah.
That's the problem, I think.
Okay.
Anyway, any other questions here? I got to move this meeting along. Holy cow.
Well, it's the only agenda item. There is,
We need two motions.
I will need two motions.
I'll make
Do you have
a,
anything else in your report?
I just wanted to let you know that CV Development is also going to participate in that to improvements to Copper Town Center. A combination of building a transmission line from Copper Town Center to connect to our facilities, and at some point, improvements to the commercial side and building 48 townhomes.
So that was one of the big keys for Copper Valley or
Yeah.
the town square, right? They didn't have the infrastructure, they didn't have it, but now they do.
This is,
They will.
Well,
Or they
wait,
will.
Yeah.
they will.
And Jeff or Mike, do you know, that's a little bit of a different scenario because town center is already built. And so how is that one funded? It's a different scenario than a new subdivision that's about to get built out.
Yeah, so that town square, since you have a partially built out portion of that project, we have a significant amount of value already there within the town square that we would plan to take advantage on, hopefully later on this year, to help fund some upgrades to the sewer and water improvements and start the delivery of that long sewer transmission main between those two projects. So yeah, that's a key component for town square is to take advantage of the existing portion of the project that has significant value, and then help fund those improvements to expand town square, and then down the road with that sewer main expansion.
So
Well, I
the
think that's-
developer is taking on the debt service themselves then with town center essentially as collateral, is what it sounds like?
Yeah, that's yeah, since they own the whole thing, that's what ultimately the level of the tax is going to be, and how much we can generate from a bond perspective is yet to be determined. But yeah, that's the conversation, is that they're willing to take on that debt on that developed portion of the project to generate some funding for sewer and water improvements.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Oh, I think that's wonderful. I think that's great.
You wanna make a motion, Cindy, you?
Sure, I'll make a motion of going on we want two separate motions, right, for the resolutions. So I'll make a motion authorizing execution, delivery of the joint community facilities agreements in connection with the bond opportunities for land development, known as the BOLD program.
I'll second.
Oh, we got,
Oh, we have,
Well, we have a motion and a second, but at this time, I'd like to see if there's any public comment on this. Victor?
The public hearing?
Yes.
Hold on.
Well, just for technical clarification, I think that any comments would be coming in under the public hearing, the duration of the public hearing. We can close the public hearing to take the vote, but we have to keep the public hearing
Right,
open.
I agree.
That's fine. Yeah, but you can't vote during, you have to close it before you vote.
Yeah.
Do we have to
Or
have a public hearing for each motion? Or should we have?
Is it notices the public for both?
Yes.
Yeah, I don't,
Can we make
you
the
could do it
second,
both at I think you can do
One
both on the
public
same
hearing for
public
both,
hearing,
yeah.
yeah.
can we make the second motion and then have the public comment? Okay, I'll make a motion. Adopted resolution 2023 16, approving, authorizing, directing, and execution of joint exercise of powers agreement relating to the California Municipal Finance Authority.
and I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second on each of these components of this proposal. And I would like to see if there's any public comment on this agenda item.
Copperopolis. I'm a little confused who's doing the vetting of the contractors. Is it the CFMA? Anyway, working with CB Development, you're dancing with the devil. There is a history that isn't too good with managing partners. I'm glad Director Davidson brought up scenarios for delinquencies and also for foreclosures. I do not think the development will build out as planned. And don't get me wrong, I hope it does. And also, don't get me wrong, been promoting and being an activist for a sewer line. But I just want to let you guys know, or put a warning out there, or a flag up regarding this program with CB Development. That is it.
Can I try to answer one of your questions while you're thinking?
Yes, sir.
Well, the way I understand it, and Jeff can correct me, as far as the vetting, we're not gonna be necessarily vetting a contractor or a developer, but this organization is gonna be vetting the value of the property, and it has to be a 4-to-1 ratio.
Oh, I understand that.
So, but that won't be our responsibility.
Right. I'm just saying, whoever, CFMA, and you guys, I hope it all goes well. God bless them. This is what, you guys want, and this is what we're working on, is a controlled growth
Right.
and managed growth.
But also, we're not adopting financing for either one of these
Right.
projects today. We're just listing a couple of opportunities, developers that may take this opportunity to use this product. We're not approving anything for them today.
And is your question in terms of contractors, construction contractors? Or which contractors are you referring to?
Oh, no, I'm talking to developers.
Oh, see, yeah.
Yeah, developers. I'm just saying, I don't.
We've been through a financing recently. I can show you the banks aren't gonna loan unless the entity is vetted and has collateral and is good for it.
Right. And
But
and
that
also
would be our
with
responsibility.
the 41. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any other comments?
There is a question online that was typed in.
Yes,
If you allow a developer to prepay capacity fees and the fees end up rising, how does CCWD collect the difference?
Good question.
If we've already collected the capacity fees, we won't collect the difference. We don't apply capacity fee increases retroactively.
okay, is that any other question online or otherwise? All right, with that, I would like to close the public hearing and ask for individual votes on this, the first component. Can you just do the roll call on the first component, please?
Yes. Director Underhill,
Yes.
Director Davidson,
Yes.
Director Cicada,
Yes.
Director Thomas.
Yes. Okay, that portion of the proposal passes. And then could you also do a roll call on the second approval of the authorizing and directing execution of the joint exercise powers agreement?
Director Underhill,
Yes.
Director Davidson,
Yes.
Director Cicada,
Yes.
Director Thomas.
Yes. Okay. So that concludes this item 4A. We will go on to the general manager's report.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you,
Thank
Jeff, and
everybody.
thanks, Mike.
You bet.
Appreciate
Thank
your
you.
help.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, I was gonna just have a short list of reports, but because this meeting is going so quickly, I think I'll go long instead.
Don't you have a review coming up?
In fact, Scott, I missed the finance committee meeting yesterday and I apologize to Scott. I apologize to Director Cicada too. But when I apologized to Scott, he said, no, actually it went really quickly. Mike, message,
Scott was
message
directing
received.
them.
Yeah.
But it was a really great meeting, by the way.
Good, good.
New reports and stuff. It was awesome.
So yeah, finance committee yesterday, they talked about the BOLD program, talked about lockoffs and late fee collection or reminder notices. So that's probably something that we'll be bringing to the full board in the near future. Here we have some policy issues we need to work through, but we want to get that resolved one way or another. So probably the next couple months, we'll have an item for the full board.
Because, excuse me, because the state is not paying fees anymore, or there's been,
Well, we haven't
right, we haven't locked
implemented
off
our
or,
lock off program since the moratorium was lifted. And I think the discussion, the direction we're leaning in or going towards is actually not bringing lock offs back, just using reminder notices and late fees as the incentive. But the lock off portion of the process is pretty labor intensive.
Yeah.
And so we think that's a better approach. So.
I think, staff is gonna bring back a updated policy on
Yeah.
that. That's what the finance recommended. They do that, bring it back to the whole board.
It'll touch several different policies, so we just need to kind of go through and make sure that the policies are in line with the direction that we want to go in.
perfect.
We had as Ralph mentioned, we did a town hall in Copper Monday. Man, the week is blending together. And I don't know, probably 25 people maybe in attendance, somewhere in that neighborhood. So it was, yeah, and some people online as well. It was great to see that kind of engagement. I always really appreciate it when people take their evening to come meet with the water district. And yeah, I thought good discussion, good exchanges with the community. Kelly was there. Damon gave part of the presentation. Kelly gave part of the presentation. And so I think it went well. and Becca handled a lot of the work, the heavy lifting on it as well, so. Then next up, we were joking about needing a gig band here at some point, because the tour continues. And we'll be in Arnold the 28th,
Next Tuesday.
next Tuesday, so looking
See everybody there.
forward to another good show up there.
I'll see if I can pick it up online or something.
Yeah.
Oh, no, you don't.
We do
Yeah.
live stream it.
Rebecca did
Yeah.
a great job on
Yeah.
all that.
And appreciate Director Skada you being there too. That was a long.
I
long
enjoyed
haul
it.
For you, yeah.
Yeah.
The North Fork project negotiations are ramping up. We've had several of those meetings and work. So I think, yeah, we'll continue to bring some updates and update the progress on that front. The storm operations continue to be a huge work effort for our engineering and operations departments and everybody, really. We've been, knock on wood, sort of pretty lucky these last couple of weeks. The storms haven't been as impactful as the January storms were, other than I would say with the notable exception of Baldwin Court, or is it Baldwin Court or Baldwin Lane? In one of those in West Point, where the road has Barney, sorry, not Baldwin.
Yeah.
Barney Lane in West Point, where the road has given way and it's impacted a few houses, and including 3 CCWD customers, and we have a 6-inch main in the road that has slid. The main is still fine. That part of the road is still unaffected, but the rest of the hillside, could slide at any time. So our crews have done a great job of, kind of anticipating the impacts on the West Point water system, because it's at a low point in the system. And so a break on a 6-inch main at that point in the system could really drain the whole system pretty quickly. So they've installed 2 additional isolation valves, so that we can mitigate losses, but also so that we can reduce the number of houses that would be shut off by having to isolate that part of the system. So the crews have been all over that, in really close coordination, Damon and Pat, both with Calaveras OES, and being really proactive in how we protect our infrastructure up there. The rain keeps coming. The rain in the forecast next week as well. And then lastly, so this will be a quick one. We'll be at the State Legislative Symposium tomorrow. Director Radaman will be there, and then State Legislative Committee meeting, in-person meeting on Friday for Aqua. So I'll be on the road tomorrow afternoon and Friday morning, but I will be available.
Very good.
And then I guess I should also note, since we have, I think, 3 weeks until the next board meeting, it's one of those months. The first week in April is spring break for my kids, so I'm gonna be taking that week off.
Good.
But I will be available.
Glad you're taking time.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
All right. That concludes your report, I guess.
Yes.
Okay. Director Underhill, can you talk to us about what's going on in your neck of the woods?
Oh, in my neck of the woods, we got, not appreciable snow, but only a couple inches last night. So driving through was no problem. The snow on top of the roof, and I'm thinking of all the discussion about people complaining that the snow's falling off of the cars and everything and messing your windshield up. And I'm so sorry, but that's the way it goes during the winter time. So it wasn't that bad. Had a good meeting with White Pines Park on Monday, and they're getting ready to gear up to open up the park. And so that's encouraging. Other than that, it's pretty quiet. There's not a whole bunch of ski traffic going through Ebbets Pass, not like we've seen it in the
Yeah.
past.
Not a lot.
Not,
And it's just the travel getting there isn't any fun.
Yeah, there's still Yeah, they're still looking at gas prices, and I hear on the news they're gonna be evaluating gas prices again, so we'll see what that does for us. Okay, next Tuesday, may I say again, where are you gonna be?
Los Cabos. I'll see if I can get it on the poolside bar.
The town hall meeting at the fire district.
Hey, if I could call in, I would.
I know. You're there in spirit. You're in spirit a
There
lot.
will be spirits, but
We could relocate the meeting.
Oh,
You know what? I think that's a great
Yeah.
idea. Cabo,
Nice.
for all of it.
Yeah.
How
Town
about that?
hall in Los Cabos.
Matt,
Okay, and so Evans Pass will be
Can you
there
make it,
in
Matt?
force.
Yeah.
At our town hall.
Does that conclude your report?
Yeah, yes.
who's that? Mark?
No, I need a report on this Los Cabos bar thing.
Just gonna be gone for a week.
Good for you.
There's 0 chance of rain tomorrow in Los Cabos.
Nice.
Okay, Director Cicada.
Okay, a couple things. I did attend the Copper Town Hall and it was very nice and informative. I think all staff gave a great presentation, which was even helpful to me. You know, it's nice to hear some of those things that I don't hear all the time or not at all. Also, our finance committee yesterday was a really good meeting. They produced a lot of reports, several new reports that we were asking. Kelly was there doing her, giving some information on the lockouts and stuff. So again, it was really informative and it was really nice. So thank you. Also last week I attended the IRWM. I listened to the WAC portion, which is the Watershed Advisory Group, on my way there, but attended the JPA in person. And during the JPA, we had a lot on our plate. We only meet when we have business to take care of. So we did election of officers, accepted the minutes, that kind of thing, but also considered the work plan for next year. And there's some good field trips kind of looking at taking in the area. We also reviewed the budget, and I believe we approved the budget, but we kept going back and forth because there was some unfinished business that might affect the budget, but I think we went ahead and approved it, and then we could always revisit it. Looks like the fees will stay the same as they were for this fiscal year. And we did do approve some website improvements. It has to do with some kind of additional map layering that is supposed to be good for our website out there on the T-Stand IRWM. And as far as West Point goes, we're always really quiet except for the Barney Lane going on. And that's it.
When is your town hall?
We have one. I don't know. No, we're definitely waiting till the summer for sure.
Okay.
We should, instead of a town hall, we should consider setting up a booth at the Lumberjack Days or something and
Yeah.
maybe reach out to people that way instead of a specific town hall. Have a loop of presentations going on.
Absolutely.
I would participate in that if you want.
Does that conclude your report?
That concludes my report.
Okay, as far as my report, we had a gentleman come to the microphone a few moments ago and said some things that the gentleman should go back to his organization and talk to their lawyer and see whether some of the comments that he made here would be subject to libel or defamation considerations. The gentleman talked about dancing with the devil and also talked about defaults and predictions of defaults and stuff. And I would submit that that town square property would have already been in default if this particular developer that took it over hadn't taken it over. And it's no fault of his or theirs that there was no sewer line. And I know that there are challenges in every aspect of business these days and financial markets and whatnot. So I think that what we're doing should be looked upon as extending a helping hand. It's not going to cost any
Yeah.
ratepayer any money for us to be supportive to their efforts. And I don't know, that dancing with the devil could be considered a pretty serious libelous attack in a public forum. I submit that in a constructive criticism manner. And it's my opinion, not anybody else's here. And that concludes my report for today.
Closed session, can you read the closed session?
Next board meeting?
My blood pressure should come down a little bit, so. Okay, we have next meetings will be on April the 12th at 1 p.m. Wednesday, April 26th, also at 1 p.m., both regular board meetings. Now, item number 8 is closed session conference with legal counsel. We have anticipated litigation, significant exposure to litigation pursuant to subdivision D2 of Government Code Section 54956.9, one potential case. Another item is 8B, Government Code 54957.6, agency negotiations, general manager Michael Minkler and HR Manager Stacy Lawler regarding negotiations with employee organizations SEIU Local 1021 and Management Confidential Unit. And we will be back to report any reportable action. So that concludes this portion of the meeting.
We'll adjourn in the closed session.
We're adjourning into closed